Hello, welcome to 21 This Week. I'm John Hurson, filling in for Susan Heltemus, who's not feeling very good. Susan, get better. He was supposed to fill in for Casey Aiken, who's got a big night tonight, and we'll talk about that later. Susan, get better soon. Coming up next, internet privacy. Another Annapolis session nears the end. The winners and losers. And Donald Trump continues to make news. We are joined today by our panel of keen political observers. Elbridge James, past president of Progressive Maryland, and former Republican delegate from District 39, Matt Mossburg. Stay tuned for these topics and more. This week, the Maryland Republican legislators stopped a Democratic effort to introduce internet privacy protections in Maryland in response to a vote on Capitol Hill that gutted internet privacy rights. County Council member Hans Remer introduced legislation this week to prevent lists being posted online on county sites. This action took place after a Bethesda resident received more than 21,000 emails from the county and from the county members' lists after filling a public information request to the county. Elbridge, have you fought for civil rights for decades. Is privacy a new civil right?
In many ways it is. We have unscrupulous merchants and those that would like to pry on the weak and the poor and the disadvantaged who have internet access but don't have access to good health care, don't have access to food, don't have access to affordable housing or financial opportunities. And they offer these depending on either your financial basis or your internet habits. They will offer these opportunities that come with many hidden pitfalls and catches. Also, the selling of my information to me is a violation of my privacy, number one. But also it could be used to prevent me from getting jobs, housing. It could be used to basically label me something that I'm not. For those that have the means to turn around and still screen their privacy, that's one thing. But for those who are disadvantaged and really the poor, they don't have that opportunity. This is a bad bill, and really it's not what America's about.
Let me just ask you, challenge that a little bit. I mean, the whole idea of having states individually sort of try to regulate the internet and privacy rights is kind of like the wild, wild west. I mean, is that what we have to do now that the federal government is kind of challenging all those privacy rights?
We have to, and it's also going to be both piecemeal, and it also requires us to have access to the means to prevent or stop the selling of our information. And a lot of times you have now multilateral corporations or large corporations, our internet bans that if I can just sell it without the state even knowing it. And it's after the fact that you then turn around and make a corrective action. And by that time, the damage is done.
Yeah. I have no idea, Matt, how the Republican administration is looking at this.
Right.
I mean, it's something that's,
right.
Privacy rights, it seems to be kind of a Republican kind of thing.
And it is, but I think there's a bigger story here, and this is what we're seeing. And kudos to the Republican leadership, in the House and Senate. What we are seeing, especially in Maryland, I think Maryland is the best example, is we are seeing this reactionary form of government on a state level to anything Trump does. The Democrats, especially in a democratically controlled legislature like in Maryland, just respond, just react. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. And an issue, I think you're right, where we're talking about internet privacy that doesn't respect state lines. It's one of those measured responses, but we can't even have a discussion about it because the liberal left is they're ravenous, they're rabid about it. So anything that comes out of the Trump administration, they're going to fight. And I'm glad that Republicans in Annapolis could finally say, hold on, let's take a breath. Let's take a look at this. This is, there's a bigger issue here.
Well, actually, let's talk about what's happening in Annapolis. As the former Democratic majority leader and a committee chairman, as you know, I know this is the crazy season in Annapolis. We won't be on the air next week, So let's try to do a wrap up of where we are right now. The last day of the session is this coming Monday, sine die. Let me ask you guys, are there any winners so far? Matt?
Absolutely. I can think of two winners. I think, first of all, Larry Hogan's a big winner. I think Larry Hogan has shown that he has the political acumen, the skills. He's very politically savvy. He's been picking his battles. He's putting that message out there, I'm doing what's best for Maryland. And I think that he continues to show real leadership. The other one, too, is Delegate Kumar Barve from Rockville. A couple things about Kumar is that he was a champion of this fracking issue, and even though we're on different sides of that, he did so much behind-the-scenes work, getting this legislation passed, and just as a committee chair. I mean, if you're looking for civility in Annapolis, you have to go into his committee to find it, because the way he runs the committee, the way that he respects the folks on there, it's just really is a model of something that I wish would restore to Annapolis. So I think, Hogan's the big winner locally. Kumar, kudos to Kumar.
I'm going to ask you guys who the losers are in a minute.
Yeah,
But
okay.
Elbridge, who do you think are the winners?
Well,
if there's a winner in your mind.
I agree with I won't say opponent. I agree with him about the governor. The governor has tap danced this thing admirably. And I think he's put the leadership in the Democratic Party on notice. I won't be as easy to take down as you think I will be. That's number one. But I also think number two, the legislation, because of his tap dancing, a good legislation was passed this year, both on helping the poor school systems and also the fracking bill, as you said, and looking at opioid problems and things of this nature. There was a lot of good legislation and had opportunities to pass this year that we believe that I wish Washington would take a notice of this, that in spite of our differences, we can work around some things to get some things passed.
Right.
That's great.
And I would actually say, too, if I can,
Go ahead.
the opioid epidemic issue is a perfect example where, a lot of the legislators were saying, look, we check our party at the door. This is not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. This is one of those times, I think, one of the bright spots when the state really did come together. There was some great legislation introduced. I am very involved in this issue personally, and I was able to testify on Governor Hogan's bills for increased penalties for opiate traffickers. And just the severity of the issue and the respect in the committee it's been given, there are bright spots, and this was one of them.
Okay, we got some winners. What about some losers? Who won? Who lost? We know the winners. Who were the losers this session in your guys' minds?
I believe still one of the losers are the working poor. They failed to raise or address the minimum wage issue, and that is an issue that, though we're keeping inflation down, still $7.95, $7.75 is still not an opportune wage that the working poor have to work under. Even McDonald's and other places are starting to raise their wage up because they do understand to keep employees, I've got to do that. We just need other employers to say, you've got good people, don't lose them to those employers who are paying a higher wage. $7.75, I think it is $7.95. It's not the floor we should be aiming for.
Yeah, Matt?
Yeah,
Losers?
there's three big losers. Common sense, civility, and the Democratic liberal left. I mean, I've watched this, and it's been terrible. I mean, the liberal left in Maryland has evolved into a self-licking ice cream cone. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, they are just out of touch with reality, and I've seen just how they've reacted. And once again,
Give me an example.
Brian Frosch, perfect example.
All right, okay.
I respect him. I was in the legislature with him, but just how that we've seen that he wants the right to sue the government, the federal government, is given to him. Just the way they've treated Hogan's appointments, it has become so politicized that common sense has really taken a backseat to partisan politics. And
like Washington.
But the thing is, on a state level, we in touch with when we're that much closer to our citizens, the Democrats have to come up with a better strategy than just reacting to everything Trump does. And that's what we're seeing in Maryland, and we're seeing the insanity because of that.
There's one who has represented the liberal left. Okay, I kind of would take it back to the fact is that we may have to be very robust about our arguments,
right.
But we have a constituency that's been hurting for so long that unfortunately sometimes need to see that flag raised that we got somebody on our side and really trumpeting the issue. Right. I think in the end, and behind closed doors, a lot of things do get accomplished. But for the average citizen, i.e., like for instance, those who represented initially the Tea Party, they raised that banner very hard and very high, and very restrictive in terms of what they would and would not work with. We see some of that in Congress now, with the conservative hard right, in terms of not willing to work together to work on those
Let me ask
issues.
you guys a quick question about Hogan, because we're coming up on re-election effort of his. Okay. Do you think that this past session has helped him or hurt him? Given, we have a new Trump administration, we have a new Republican administration at the federal level, which is, only, 90 minutes down the road or even less than that. Is he in better shape than when he started in January, or worse shape?
I think he's in better shape. He's in much better shape. And if you look at the poll numbers, we have seen a slight decrease that I think will bounce back for Hogan, because he is governing in a common sense way that most of the citizens of Maryland agree with. I think that he's able now to juxtapose himself against, look, this is, the Democrats, it's all about politics, and they're putting politics above the interests of the citizens of Maryland. So I think he has a stronger argument to make there. I think the sanctuary city, or sanctuary state
You think that
bill,
helps him?
I think it helps him a lot. And I'll tell you, if I can say this.
I disagree with you.
Okay,
I think that's going to be a problem for him.
I'll tell you why it helps him. The government's primary responsibility is the safety and security of its citizens. I think the Democrats are in danger here, and they don't even see it. They could very well lose a significant portion of their constituency. And I'm talking about the woman vote. When a woman or mother feels that the safety of her children is not being protected, I think you can make inroads there.
Here's what I would say, Matt.
Sure.
I think when it's safety of a family that has a undocumented member, who doesn't have documents or papers, feels like that person's going to be snatched off the street. I think that's a fear that people feel. But I agree with you.
Right,
I think this is a real issue,
right.
Particularly in Maryland.
Absolutely.
But also the fact is that I think Hogan is in better shape. But I do believe the anchor around his chain is Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And he's been able to maneuver and still stay afloat, understanding that the Democrats now have this opportunity to put forth legislation to which I have also been lobbying in Annapolis and seen Democrats fight other Democrats over some common sense legislation that they didn't do this year. In fact, because they knew their enemy was not themselves or the legislation, it was the person in the governorship that they had to look at, and the person in the White House. I give him credit on that. But I also say the fact is that he still has shark-infested waters to go forward.
Absolutely, he does.
So you guys, we have a weekend left. We still have a couple of days left of an entire legislature. There's still things pending.
Right.
What is the big thing that's going to happen this weekend? What do we keep our eyes on in terms of legislative action over the next 3 or 4 days? We've had this bail bill, which has been pending, which appears that it's not going to be voted. The Senate voted for the bail reform, the bail bill, which would allow judges to impose bail on poor residents. The House is not going to take it up, and this is a very contentious thing with all the bail bondsmen.
Right.
They need to have this
The
legislation
Black Caucus
passed.
has already opposed that legislation.
Black Caucus is involved. What's going to happen this weekend that you think is going to be the thing that we're all going to be reading about on Tuesday morning?
I think the flyover, the big scene is that it's going to be the session ending in a whimper, not a bang.
Correct.
I think, and I say, and this is sad, I think the legislature is coming out of the session with a black eye. The revelations today of former House of Delegates member, now Senator, being indicted, federal indictment. This has been the kind of the backdrop theme of the whole session is the corruption in Maryland. Yeah. This den of thieves, and I think that it's coming out giving a black eye. I think that also strengthens Hogan since he's been pushing for this ethics legislation, and I think it's going to be a real
just
mark.
so people know this. I mean, it's sort of brand new in the news. Former delegate Nathaniel Oakes, and now Senator, was indicted this afternoon, and there's been other indictments in Prince George's County that have come out to the fore. So those are things that are pending.
In past years, not also always in this current year.
Right.
And whereas I agree with you in terms of a stronger, as a citizen, a stronger need for ethics. Yes. We're also looking at, I believe, when the Assembly pushed those bills, 15 bills up, so that in fact there was time for the veto, and the governor tap danced around it. This will be really a
All right.
handshake session.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're gonna have to move on. Thanks. We've wrapped it up as best we can. We'll be back after a short break. Don't go away. Another week, and more tasks assigned to Jared Kushner, the son-in-law. The Justice Department wants to postpone the enforcement of police consent decrees, like the one in Baltimore. And a Maryland judge denied the pause in the decree. Stephen Bannon was kicked off the National Security Council. Why a war may be fomenting between the Kushner and Bannon factions in the West Wing. The Senate took the nuclear option and forced the Gorsuch nomination to the Supreme Court. Investors are nervous about Trump's lack of action, but on Thursday night, Trump ordered a bombing of an airstrip in Syria, where the chemical gas attack was launched. Reactions around the world are mixed. Matt, as a Republican, what do you think of the Trump presidency less than 100 days in?
I supported Trump in the general election for one reason, because I wanted him to pick a good Supreme Court justice. So he's delivered on that, so I'm happy about that. I think he's actually having really good first 100 days. I think there's a lot of still, smoke and mirrors going on. There's still a lot to clear, but I think generally he's told people what he's going to do. He's following through. I'm happy. As a former politician moving forward, I also think that this is something Republicans need to realize, and the public sees it, but we don't yet, is that the voters are able to separate the man from the message. And so I think especially with this Syrian attack, this is the kind of leadership that we need. And you mentioned in your comments that it's mixed, but I think generally positive. Even Chuck Schumer today came out saying it was the right thing to do. And I think this also clears away a lot of the 8 years of ambivalence, and ambiguity that we had in foreign policy. Obama's remark about the red line being drawn, and then the chemical attack several years ago, the response was nothing. America is showing that we are the leaders in the civilized world, and I think we're on our way to kind of establishing that moral authority again.
We're 12 hours into the attack. I mean, it's new, so I'm not sure the history has been written on the effects of what happened. When the attack on Syria took place.
Effects will be minimal. And to be honest with you, I love your support of the man, but you got some good rose-colored glasses there. Okay, this guy is way above his head. And I think even the bewilderment on his face sometimes with the not getting things done, not looking at getting the best information he could get, the Bannon-Kushner dichotomy that's going back and forth, and forgetting Bannon may have had his ear a little bit, but he has two women in the White House who are saying, not this guy, his daughter and his wife. And his daughter, I do believe if the memoir is written 20 years from now, he'll say that he saw the pictures and they were brought to him by Kushner and his daughter, and he says, I've got to do something. To hell with the political consequences.
Well, and it seems to me that the decision about Syria really moved him to become more of a, if you will, a traditional Republican, force is worth it, that we're not going to just live in a world that, Bannon's, created in his head, like deconstruct, the European Union. I mean, that's not a place the United States wants to be. Let me just ask this real quick, because I think the pivot point for Trump right now is going to be, does he go back to try to repeal Obamacare? That was kind of a failure in the first 100 days. Or does he try to move on to something where he can unify at least Republicans over tax reform? What do you think?
Okay, wait, let's not drop this Syrian thing too quick. He is bombed. He is taking a unilateral action that, in fact, he needs to have congressional support and backing.
No, I disagree. The Congress has purposefully, over the past several decades, pulled back from giving the president authority to do these kind of attacks.
Under national security interest, and he has to go forward now with that.
Because congressmen and senators, they don't want the blame. They're not. They want political cover. So
Oh.
they've deferred a lot to the president. And let's face it. I remember when the Monica Lewinsky scandal was going on. Clinton was sending a bomb somewhere in the Middle East every other
Weekend.
So there's a lot of hypocrisy on this. But the thing about Syria is that one of the best things that actually might happen in this is it'll actually give us a seat at the table. Number one, when they are redrawing lines over, that's very critical. Number two, and Rex Tillerson said it today, is that Russia was in charge of keeping Assad in line. So Russia's either complicit or impotent, and so America is once again taking the leadership that I think we need to take in the world.
I don't disagree with that. I think you're right. Let me just take real quick, 30 seconds, I think. Next thing Trump should do, go back to health care or go on to tax reform.
He should go on to tax reform.
Tax reform, healthcare.
Because, and I say tax reform because in the big picture, in 2 years, and I'll get this in my parting shot, but in 2 years, people who are going to the polls are going to say, am I safer? Did Trump follow through on that? How's the economy doing? How's my paycheck? Things like that. Those are what are going to, all of that's going to be decided based on people's interest in how their lives are doing.
Yep. Great. Thank you, guys. We're going back in a moment to parting shots. You guys. Casey is not here tonight as he is being inducted into the Georgetown Prep Hall of Fame as a two-sport athlete who excelled in soccer and football back just a couple of years ago in high school. Casey is celebrating with his family and friends tonight, and we all send him our congratulations for this incredible honor. So now we have parting shots, and Elbridge, you're first.
My parting shot partially has to go to the Maryland State Education. We have policies that allow you to suspend kids in kindergarten, first, second, third grade. Those policies should be removed, revoked, whatever. These are children that need more attention and not to be sent at home. So we clearly need to, especially with our education children, have better policies toward them. And that should be one of our main pushes. My second parting shot is to the Montgomery County people that handle traffic. Today, on the way in here, I was at an intersection in the green light. When I saw someone I knew was going to run that light as it turned red, I stopped because I had to make a left turn. And not only did I get flashed, for being in the red light, but there'll be a ticket at my desk, probably sometime next week with a fine, a $40 or $50 fine. When I'm trying to save my life and somebody else's life by not doing the right thing, or really doing the right thing by stopping, letting this person run the red light and save myself.
So it's the red light cameras.
The red light cameras. I hate those things.
Matt.
Shout out to Casey Aiken too, former Hoyas, John and me, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's great. I have two parting shots. The first one is the 2018 election. I think, conventional wisdom always said that on the off years, the party in power and the presidency, they don't do too well. I think I'm going to throw conventional wisdom out the window. I think 2018 is going to be a very difficult year for Democrats. I think they're going to wake up to a morning of realizing that the reason they have no narrative to sell is because in order to make a narrative believable, it has to be true. And we were talking about that earlier, where I think that they have really lost a lot of the moral credibility with their base of providing better lives for their citizens. And I expect the Democrats to, kind of get a spanking in 2018. I think we'll see Republicans coalesce. And the other one is just, once again, kudos to the government, to Governor Hogan, to leadership, to Bobby Zirkin, and others that have worked so hard in this opioid package. Recovery is a personal issue for me, and I've worked in it for the past 3 years. And it is an epidemic, and I finally see us really waking up to this and taking the steps necessary.
So, to your first parting shot, I just wish the Women's March on Frederick will occur very soon to teach you that we're not asleep at the wheel here. Anyway, on behalf of everyone here, I would like to wish all of the viewers and everybody here a very happy Passover and Easter as you spend time with your families. See you in 2 weeks for Montgomery County's hardest-hitting political talk show, 21 this week. I'm John Hurson, and bye for now. Susan, get better.